If you love ribs, you've got to love Lomac. They've been building boats since 1960. They're 62 years of experience, quite a pioneering sort of name in terms of the development of ribs as they evolved over the years. And today they have an extremely prolific range, around about 58, 59 boats across 7 product lines. And here in Genoa, we've popped along to the Lomac stand to take a look at their latest offering in the Granturismo line. The first thing to talk about here is application. Because they've got 7 product lines, they've got everything you could want, from tiny tenders to basic starter boats to classic med style day boats. They also have this sporting line of adrenaline boats. That's the 10.5 you see there. Wide open boats, big power, big pace, performance hulls. And the Granturismo line is their cruiser line. Runs all the way to this flagship unit on the end, the 12.5. There's also the 11 here with the elevated foredeck mouldings and the big cabin accommodation. But for several reasons, the one we're going to look at today is this, the Granturismo 10.5. It looks almost like a cross between the established Granturismo models and the open-decked Adrenaline series, because instead of elevated forward mouldings and big below-decks accommodation, we've got kind of a deep-set cockpit, a centre console and a walk-around deck layout with a sociable zone up there in the bow. If we start at the transom, you can see that this particular showboat is rigged with a pair of Yamaha's 300 horsepower V6s. Now this is the rig that Lomac recommends, and apparently with these engines in position, it should be good for around about 49 knots, just about touching 50 knots at a push. You can also cruise at around about between 30 and 35, 36 knots. If you really want to push the performance envelope though, the guys here tell me that you can also rig this boat with a pair of Yamaha's XTOs, twin 425s, 850 horsepower and lots of torque. Apparently in that configuration it's good for around about 60 knots. It just really depends what you want from this boat. But it's interesting to hear the guys here speak about efficiency rather than judging it necessarily in terms of the amount of fuel you're drinking. They prefer to talk about the rate at which you're able to reach your next destination. That's quite an Italian take on the issue of efficiency, but it's quite a charming one. And it's good in any case to know that 425s are an option if that's what you want to do with this boat. Now if we step on board, a couple of other design features make themselves evident back here. Firstly, as you can see, it's not naked inflatable collar back here, but rigid mouldings, and that's enabled them to position the shore power aft out of harm's way. We also have a transom shower built in to these aft mouldings in the back edge of that bench. And some neat little sunken cleats on this moulding to starboard. Plus, on both sides, as you can see, this kind of elegant inset grab rail. Looks like something taken off the gunnels of a Windy. It's rather lovely. I'm not sure how much use it is as a grabbing point because it's quite low profile and it's difficult to get your fingers underneath. And it's quite low and quite a long way outboard, but it's handy, as you can see, for tying off your fenders if that's what you want to use it for, and it looks very slick, as you can see from the neighbouring boat here, from the Granturismo 11, particularly as it sits just above that raked vent, which in itself is a lovely little design feature. Lomac has chosen to use quite a compact engine wheel, just sufficient really to trim those engines out because it wants to maximise space in that deep set cockpit. We access that via the starboard walkway, and of course you can remove this cushion to ease your passage in. And it's clear that one of the key imperatives for Lomac has been ease of access to your storage spaces, because rather than these opening sideways and giving you a narrow aperture to access your gear, you simply lift that up fore and aft on a big powerful ram and it gives you full access all the way through. Right enough, these are used on the starboard side for a pair of batteries and your battery switches. But as you'll see when I lift the port side, it's the same deal, and this entire space is an unbroken wraparound C-shaped space that goes all the way around the back end there, with lots of room to put your gear in. But it doesn't go all the way aft, as you can see, to that backrest, and the reason for that, if I close these back down again, there we are, is the fact that on this boat, we fold up these cushions, we've got the bimini stowed in there, so you don't have to fuss about getting wet and rigging it when the weather turns. It's a neat little touch. At the heart of this cockpit, just ahead of that C-shaped seating section with a little bit of deck on either side, just enough to access the walk-around deck that goes around that centre console, we've got the unit for the twin helm seats, and built into that is a kind of wet bar, and you'll see what I mean by that when I open it up. It's not actually spec'd to this particular model with much. We have a very compact sink, a big surface there in the centre which presumably could be used for a compact stove top, and we also have a little chopping board that's built into that section there, plus a big fridge underneath. Close that back up again. You'll see round this side we have some grab handles at a pretty good height this time to make your way forward. We also have the fuel filler here, which is quite an unusual choice. You might ordinarily expect to see it in a little recessed moulding on the outside of the gunnel there as it leads aft. But presumably they've done this simply because the tank is directly beneath that seating unit. In any case, when you move around to the front, you'll see that it's a relatively simplistic seat for two. There's no bolster built into it because of course it's just the flat top of that wet bar lid. Again, there's a grab rail on top there, and at the helm itself we have kind of a carbon fibre style material multi-tiered dash. It's quite lofty, it's quite elevated, but so is the seating position, so there's no lack of visibility there, particularly in the standing position. And when you do stand, the leading edge of this cushion actually feels a bit like a bolster. If you sit yourself down, of course, you can use this flip down footrest, but if you're standing up, jamming yourself against that edge, that feels quite comfortable. There seems to be no adjustability built into this steering wheel though, but everything else feels pretty well positioned. The throttle's to your right hand. We've got a little joystick control just set into its own dedicated little recess at the top of the dash there. Down below you can see that the space is not huge, but it's very decent, and it's particularly bright. Starting on the port side, we have a little storage unit with a little work surface and shelf. We have a couple of opening portholes here, and because the tubes drop quite low at this section, you can actually, as you can see, you get a decent view through those, plus you get longer raked higher level windows as well. Another one though, we didn't really notice it on the foredeck, engineered into the leading edge of that console, and another pair on the starboard side, so it's very bright. It's a good length of bed, a decent size for a couple to sleep overnight. You can also remove these central sections to create a seating area, but of course because of that foredeck seat you can't sit around that forward edge, so this is really seating for up to 4 people along either side here. We also have decent storage on both sides. We need fairly conventional lift out bits of ply, and again storage that goes right down into the very base of the hull. Not lined, but very deep, very big. And on the starboard side we have a standalone heads compartment with some good privacy and again some good light from the rest of that raked window on the side of that console. This kind of 2-level mirror bounces things around, and we have a decent toilet, storage space and sink. It's not a wet room, but you wouldn't expect it on a day boat like this with occasional overnighting facilities. There's not really standing headroom in here at all. As a 6-footer, it's probably about 5'6", I would say. And on your way out, you'll see there's a little fiberglass lip here that you need to mind your head on. So it's certainly compact down there, but as a place to store your gear during a day on the water, and as an occasional space for overnighting when there's no local B&B to put you up, it does a very serviceable job. As we move forward towards the bow, you'll see these big aft mouldings, these big aft sports boat style mouldings give way to the collar itself as it tapers towards that bow, but not before we have a couple of neatly inset little teak steps for getting on and off amidships. The walkways are a good sort of breadth and depth and run all the way around, as you can see, a walk around configuration around that central console. And further forward we have more traditional tube top grab handles, and this is currently rigged, of course, as a sunbathing space. If you look down here at this table, you'll see it's a manually operated table. You can put that up to create a dining space for perhaps 4, 5, 6 people at a push. This is a fixed seat on the front of the console. It doesn't open up, it doesn't give you any light down below. There's no access to get any gear down below either. But on either side here, you'll see we have the waist outlet neatly tucked away with a little bit of storage, with no rams there, as you can see, so you need to be a little bit careful with that. Decent size of storage, but of course it does have those waste pipes running through it, as you can see. And on the other side, they use a similar setup for the water point, and again we open up this bit of storage here, currently used for the lines and so on. You see that's open to the front section of storage too, right forward to where the anchor is. And again we have the water pipes at the aft end of that locker. Let's shut that up and get these cushions back where they belong. It is after all a show boat, and there are plenty of people keen to see this one. Now we move further forward towards the very V of the bow. As you can see, no anchor in evidence, so it is of course neatly positioned on the forwardmost edge there on the stem. And if we open up the locker just after that, you see we have the windlass there. Quite a compact compartment, but the controls are neatly positioned, one on either side, as you can see. And then if you want access to the anchor chain and the line, you need to get this big cushion section out of the way and open the main locker up here, which is a bit stiff. There we are, that one does have a ram. Good size of storage unit. Goes right down into the hull, so it's not lined, it's stringers there. And if we open this forwardmost locker, you'll see that's where the anchor chain is kept. It's a bit compact and out of the way, but it does keep all the workman-like stuff out of the way as storage, maximises space for things like this. I don't even know what that is. This enormous bulky unit in there, there's plenty of space there. And if we put those cushions back down, get this locker back down first, you'll see that we have little Velcro fastenings to hold it flat. And we also have a neat little headrest, again with Velcro fastenings to hold that in place right forward. Now the Granturismo 10.5 is basically the granddaddy of the Granturismo series. It's been around for a while. But this next door, the Granturismo 11, well, that uses a new kind of hull shape. It was introduced about a year ago, and it uses finer entry and a shallower aft planing surface with a slightly more elevated nose at pace and better responsiveness in terms of your activities with the trim switches at the helm. So what Lomac has done is re-engineered the hull of this 10.5 to give it a new lease of life. It's not the same hull as that, but it adopts those same core principles. And according to the guys at Lomac, it's running faster, smoother, softer and more responsively than it ever has done in its long and distinguished past. The prices look pretty good too. As things stand, this Granturismo 10.5 can be yours from around 214,000 euros plus VAT, and in its show spec on the water for 275,000 euros plus VAT, which comes in at an all-in price of around 335,000 euros. If you really want to ramp it up and spec the next model up from the Granturismo range, the 11 with its extra accommodation, that's only another 40,000 or 50,000 euros. But whatever kind of rib you're into, whatever kind of boating applications you want, with 62 years of boat building experience behind it and 58 models across 7 product lines, there's no doubt that Lomac has something to fit the bill.